All right, time for the homework solution walkthrough for the connecting and shaping data assignment. Now, important comment here, if you didn't complete the homework, I'd highly recommend that you go back and do so, or at the very least, follow along closely with the solution that I'm about to walk you through, because we're actually going to be adding new fields and new tables that will be critical for the rest of the course. So with that, let's get started. Question 1 asks us to create 2 new queries to the product categories and product subcategories CSV files from the course resources. Then once we load those, we're going to name them consistently with our other tables, AW product category lookup and AW product subcategory lookup, and go through and make sure that the headers look good and the data types are correct. So let's go ahead and start with the category file. I'm going to get data from a CSV, and I'm going to find AdventureWorks product categories, and that's the one I'm going to start with here. I'm going to edit to launch the query editor. I'm going to change this one a bit to AW product category underscore lookup. Again, just for consistency with all of our other table names. Press enter. Looks like my headers have been promoted properly. I've got a key, which is a whole number, consistent with my other tables. That looks good. And I've got a category name as a text field. So I'm good to go with this table. And from right here within the query editor, I'm going to grab my second table, which is the subcategories table. Okay. And same idea here. AW product subcategory lookup. Pretty simple, pretty small table. Headers are promoted. I've got my key as a whole number, which looks good. I've got my subcategory name, mountain bikes, road bikes, etc. That looks good as a text field. And I've got an additional key here, also formatted as a whole number for product category. So all looks good here as well. I can check that box. And now the last thing I need to do for question 1 is disable report refresh for both of these new connections. So product subcategory, just deselect that report refresh. Same with category. And now I'll just double check both of these. Should not refresh when we use that command from the Power BI file. So there you have it. Question 1 is complete. Moving on to question 2, we need to make some modifications to the AW product lookup table. And the first thing we need to do is add a calculated column that extracts characters before the dash in the product SKU column. So this is our product SKU column. You can see we've got some text characters, dash, some numbers, another dash. And essentially what we want to do is create a calculated column. We want to name it SKU type, and the value that we want that new column to take would be the characters before that first dash. So to do that, we're going to add a column, and from our text tools, we're going to extract text before a delimiter, and that delimiter is the dash. So we can press OK. And as you can see, it added that field. It extracted the 2 characters before the dash. You can go ahead and double click the column header and name that SKU type. And there you have it. Now the next question actually asks us to modify that calculation that we just made. Now we want to pull all of the characters before the second dash. So to do that, let's go back to that step, press the gear to edit it. And we're going to go into our advanced options. And we're still going to start from the left, or the start of the input, but we're going to skip that first delimiter, that first instance of the dash. And we press OK. We can go ahead and scroll back to that calculated column. And now it contains those first characters, as well as the first dash, and those characters before the second. So we can go ahead and click through to keep that renamed column step. And now we've got that updated SKU type column, which pulls in all of the text from that product SKU column before the second dash. Next up, we need to replace zeros in the product style column. So here's our product style column. Let's see what we're working with here. We've got the zeros, and then we've got M for men, U for unisex, W for women's. So just check that out, press OK. Now what we want to do here is not add a column, but transform this existing one. And we're going to use the replace values option and simply find the 0 and replace it with NA. Press OK. You can see those swap in. And when we drill back in, now we have same 4 values, except that the 0 has been replaced by that NA. Now the final part of question 2 is to update the discount price calculation from 10% to 15%, which means we'll need to multiply that product price value by 0.85 instead of 0.9. So let's jump back to the step where we calculated that discount price, which is this step right here, inserted multiplication. We can press the gear icon, and all we need to do is update that 0.9 to 0.85 and press OK. And there you go, it's updated the raw values here. And now we can click through the additional steps. You don't have to do it one by one, but I kind of like to see the history and take us to the end. So now we've updated that discount price column from 90% to 85. And that wraps up question 2. So now moving to question 3, we're going to practice using those statistics tools in the transform menu. So there are a few values that we need to validate here. First one is the average product cost. So we can stay right here in our product lookup table, select the product cost column, make sure we're in the transform menu, go into our statistics tools, and select average. That returns a value of $413.66, which checks out. And now for each of these transformation steps, I'm just going to end up deselecting that step to take me back to where I started. And let's move on to the next one. So number of distinct product colors. Let's scroll through. Here's our product color category, and we want the count distinct from this column. So transform, statistics. Note that we only have our 2 count options because this is a text field. And we want count distinct. That gives us 10. So we've got 10 different distinct product colors that we're dealing with here. Next up, we need the number of distinct customer names, which means we need to move to our customer lookup table. And let's go ahead and find that full name column that we had created. Here it is, full name, transform, statistics, count distinct, 18,110 distinct customer names in our lookup table. So that one checks out as well. And then we've got a couple more, maximum annual customer income. Here's our annual income column, transform, statistics, maximum. That translates to $170,000, which is correct. And then 2 more, we need the count of order numbers and the count of distinct order numbers. So for those, we need to go into our sales table. And we've got our order number column right here. And you guessed it, transform, statistics, count values. Got 56,046. And if we undo, select order number again, transform, statistics, count distinct, we get 25,164. So the difference there means that there are duplicate values in the order number column, which might seem weird at first because we feel like one row should represent each order. The difference is that we have this order line item column. So there may be a single order with multiple line items, in which case one order ID might show up twice with an order line item of 1 in the first row and 2 in the second. Okay, so that's all of question 3. We validated all of those numbers. Now let's move on to question 4, which is making a few modifications back in that customer lookup table. So number 1, we need to add a new calculated column for the year of birth. We're going to name it birth year based on the birth date column. So here's birth date, add a new column. We use the date tools for this one. And all we want to do is just extract the year out of that birth date. And there you go. All we need to do is double click, rename that column header to birth year. Simple enough. Now, last but not least, we're going to practice a conditional column. And what we're looking to do here is create a new column named income level based on criteria from the customer income column. So let's go ahead and select that income column. There it is. We're going to add a column. We're going to add a conditional column. And the column will be named income level. So we can start there. And then we're checking conditions against that annual income column. So the first criteria is if that annual income is greater than or equal to $150,000, then the output, the value that we want our new income level field to take, is very high. Now, if this condition is not met, what's the next condition that we want to test for? So the next condition, the else if condition, is if annual income is greater than or equal to 100,000, in which case income level equals high. And then the third condition is if annual income is greater than or equal to 50,000, then the income level equals average. And then we don't have to add another explicit condition for less than 50 because that's kind of the only other option here. So we can go ahead and account for that condition here in the otherwise statement and say if none of these conditions are met, if a customer in a given row didn't make more than 150,000, they didn't make more than 100, and they didn't make more than 50, then the label that we want to assign them is an income level of low. And that should just about do it. Let's press OK. There we go. It added that new column called income level. And if we drill into the header, load more, as you can see, we've got values populating throughout the whole range: low, average, high, and very high. So there you go. That's all the table transformations and modifications that we need to make. All of the edits that we just made in one go can be applied by going to the Home tab, close and apply. It's going to go ahead and factor in everything we've just done. And you'll see two new tables pop up in your relationship view: product category, product subcategory. You'll also find them in the fields list, category and subcategory here in the data view. And then if we drill into our customer table, you'll see that calculated income level field that we just created in the query editor. So that wraps up the homework assignment. Hopefully you were able to follow along. I'd recommend that you go ahead and save a backup version of this report somewhere else on your machine, just to have on hand in case anything happens. But with that, we're ready to move on to the next section.